Polygon issuance number 56 on this Friday, April 24th, 2015. No guest tonight. We are monitoring severe weather across the southern half of the United States. Henry Luker here alongside Jeff Wilcox, as always. Mike is off doing ...
baseball stuff because he's doing baseball stuff tonight.
But anyway, the weather we're monitoring here, we have multiple tornadoes, severe thunderstorm watches in effect. We'll go from north to south here just to start off. The big story across Kansas, we have a tornado watch in effect for a good chunk of the state with some associated severe thunderstorm warnings. Looks like 4 there with a tornado warning just to the northwest of Salina. And then we have a pair of tornado watches across the Central Plains and southern Mississippi Valley, including Dallas. You can see a linear system there just producing some spin-up storms on the leading edge of that with a damaging wind threat and, of course, a flash flooding threat, as that area has seen a lot of rain over the past several weeks. And then you can see the remainder of a tornado watch currently just looks like to the south of, or including a part of New Orleans, pretty much the scraps left of that. And then we have the newest severe thunderstorm watch. That is for southern Texas, just for some isolated cells that are spinning up there. And it looks like those could
they're coming out of Mexico.
Damaging winds. Aside from that, up in our area, we have a few discrete thunderstorms across the central, Nebraska and across through Illinois and Wisconsin, not doing any real severe weather for the most part. We have this one lone severe thunderstorm warning for Loup County, Nebraska, but this will likely not affect the state. Just some scattered showers and thunderstorms. Jeff, I know he saw some lightning. I saw rain all morning today, but that cleared out earlier this afternoon. But aside from that, nothing really else to mention across the nation. You can see here as we go to our high-res radar here, you can see that tornado warning, which looks to be, if I look at my other monitor here, that looks to be in effect for Lincoln County. That goes until 7:30 rotation. Just to the west of Vesper. Much better than it was originally earlier scans there. If we look at the loop, you can see it was kind of broad for the most part. As we go back here, you can see just kind of a broad circulation, but it looks like it has tightened up with this scan. That may affect the northern part of Salina, or the rural areas north of there, possibly, depending on how the track goes. A lot of hail. We had a big hail core earlier. You can see there. You can see the big area of the higher reflectivity, which typically indicates hail. And then we have a lot of other discrete storms across the state there. There is a tornado warning in effect south of Dallas, but that's probably for a spin up, just a minor spin up. Looks like the best rotation just to the northwest of Waxahachie. Excuse me if I didn't.
This will be an episode of mispronounced towns.
Yeah, excuse me, as I do the Iowa Weather Network, not the Texas Weather Network.
We should start.
Home of a certain meteorologist, Jeff. But anyway, I'll toss this over to Jeff and let him.
So we have storms all over the place, and it rained here today, and it thundered, and it lightning. It's been miserable, but at least we've had a lot of rain around here, so we're not having to worry about drought. Now we have to worry about, are we going to get enough dry weather for farmers? to go out and start planting. I know that they've gone and prepared their fields. A lot of them have. I'm not sure. I'd have to go and look if some of them have already started planting. Some might have already. But with the ground being as wet as it is now in most of the state, especially in the central and eastern counties, it's probably going to be at least a day or two or three before you'll be able to go back out and do any farm work on the fields, because tomorrow it's supposed to rain more and be cold and miserable again. And then it's going to warm back up probably to about almost average for or seasonal for this time of the year. I think it's going to stay maybe a touch below seasonal for the next couple of days around here, but it looks like just a lot of the active weather has been staying to our south across the central and southern plains and across the Gulf Coast, and it's going to be a lot of severe weather possible down in the south, the mid-south, Tennessee River Valley, Ohio River Valley on Saturday, which would be April 25th. Henry right now has the risk areas for the rest of today and into tonight, more or less. You see the yellow areas are the slight risk. The orange is the enhanced risk for severe weather. That's mainly in Kansas and Texas, or in Kansas in one part, and then another part across North Texas into the Arklatex region at this point. So, but yeah, then Henry has tomorrow's outlook. You have the enhanced risk from about southeast of St. Louis to, say, Chattanooga, Tennessee. That would include areas of middle and eastern Tennessee, good portion of Kentucky, south of Louisville, more toward Bowling Green, Elizabethtown. Indiana would be about Evansville, Vanderburgh County, in that area. And Paducah, Kentucky is in that as well, along with southern Illinois, mainly along and south of Interstate 64. And then that system moves off, and then another system comes in on day 3. That's Sunday, where you have another bunch of severe weather, pretty much from about Oklahoma City, Tulsa, south to about Austin and maybe San Antonio, especially the areas west of there in the hill country, with a marginal risk more or less across the Gulf Coast. But as you can see, even there, those are 3 days. All the severe weather is to our south, and even day 4, which is Monday, the severe weather risk is still to our south. So the south is going to get hit by quite a number of rounds of severe weather over the next couple of days, but nothing around here as yet, except for those 2 tornadoes we had back on the 9th of April in Clinton County, or Clinton and Scott County. So our time is coming again sooner or later, but we're just going to have rain, which farmers and even some gardeners will need. But severe weather looks to be staying away for at least the next week to 10 days at this point. We'll see if that changes. So on the other hand, it's pretty much going to be somewhat quiet outside of this rain chance today and tomorrow. We'll see what happens with models as we go along, and if we may get some more active weather next week or later the following week or whatnot. So, but yeah, I mean, a lot of this rain, you see, this is the rainfall for the next week, pretty much through next Friday. About interesting to note, from it started right now. When this show started at 7 p.m. our time, Central Time, and this goes until our next show at 7 p.m. next Friday. So it says we'll get maybe about a quarter to a half an inch across the northern counties, and maybe upwards of 1 to maybe close to 2 inches in our southern counties. We'll see if that occurs. At this point, we probably don't need a whole heck of a lot more rain, because the ground moisture is pretty much at what I would consider adequate. Any more rain and we'll start having problems with runoff, because I've noticed the rivers are not really running high right now. They seem to be running okay because of the lack of moisture we've had for the last couple of months, until a few weeks ago when it finally started precipitating. So, but we'll see what comes of this outbreak. Late April seems to be like a thing of severe weather. Everybody would know about April 27th, 2011, April 28th last year, April 15th of 2011, the forgotten tornado outbreak. I mean, you could start listing a day in April, and there's bound to have been a tornado outbreak on one of those days in April or even into May, like May 3rd, 99, which was the first Moore tornado, or at least the first Moore tornado that people remember. And there's so on and so forth. May 20th, which was Moore 2013. May 31st, which was El Reno a couple years ago. Joplin was on gosh, what day was Joplin? May 24th, I think it was. It was May something. But it seems like there's just a lot of days from now until the end of May that are like red letter tornado days and some.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look across the nation, we have a variety of weather. We have freeze and warnings and frost advisories across the Northeast there. We have tornado watches in the plains, wind advisory there. There across Texas, severe thunderstorm watches we mentioned earlier. And then you see the multitude of flood warnings along the, I believe that's the Mississippi, correct me if I'm wrong. And then, of course, across the west, I would believe that's a winter.
The winter weather advisory in the Sierras.
Frost advisory across California there with fire weather watches or special weather statements, whatever you really want. There across Colorado and adjacent states. Yeah, so a really broad range of weather. I mean, if we look at how the rivers are doing statewide, Jeff.
Well, and that's interesting because the thing is we've had quite a bit of rain the last few weeks in Iowa, but a lot of it, from what I've heard, has soaked straight in. It's not been running off. It's been a nice, gentle rain. I had 1.6 inches of rain from this last storm, not this current one, but the last one, and it soaked right in. All the grass greened up. Everything is growing. It's nice and fine. Because for the last couple of weeks after the snow melt, until we got this 1.6 inches, the grass was brown here and dead or dormant, and it finally bloomed out, and the grass is growing. It's nice to see nice green grass instead of the brown, dormant, dead grass that we've been seeing after the snow had melted. But yeah, I don't think we're going to have to worry about flooding this year, to this day, unless we start getting a ton of rain real fast.
Yeah, I mean, generally normal conditions across most of the state, water-wise. No flooding, thankfully. At least not here. Statewide, or nation, what am I saying? Nationwide now. North Dakota, it looks like seeing their normal extreme flooding. Looks like all along the Mississippi route there, moderate to or minor to moderate flooding for the most part, and then various rivers and creeks there across the south. They've been really saturated. If you've seen,
Yeah.
It doesn't take a lot to start a flash flood down there. The flash flood guidance numbers are very low. So
and a lot of that, the flooding has been coming off of, I believe, the Ohio, because the Mississippi River has been pretty down this year because of the lack of snow in Minnesota this past winter. So most of the flooding is coming out of the Ohio River basin than the Mississippi this year. And there's been a lot of rain in the Ohio River basin this year, especially the Ohio, the Tennessee River, that area. Not a lot around here, but in hindsight, I think farmers would rather take the rain we're getting now than getting a ton of snow and having a flood and all their topsoil gets washed away. They won't want to have that. So we'll see what
Yeah, so taking a quick look, and I will mention here, if you do live in Kansas, I would recommend you follow Cirrus Weather for the latest weather coverage locally down there, as they are our partners across Kansas, and they do a terrific job with their severe weather coverage.
And I'm gonna say if you want to watch them, you should watch their live stream. And if you want to watch multiple streams, watch theirs and watch Cakeland.
Yeah,
That's a shout out to John.
with Jay Prater. Jay Prater is the man to watch. He is number one. If you want to move somewhere, you need to move to Cakeland, which is pretty much western Kansas. I would strongly recommend you. Western Kansas is a great place. They are covered by a great meteorologist. Jay Prater is number one in my book. He's a veteran meteorologist with lots of experience and coverage.
You didn't have him number one on our top 10 list at the beginning of the year.
Well, I'm changing my mind right now. They are number one. He is number one in my book. He is the best meteorologist around.
But yeah, I mean, the one thing, and then I'm gonna start ranting because we want to get all these rants out while we can. But the thing that that has been happening, because we've talked with John, who's one of our partners who does some storm chasing down in Kansas. He lives in Kansas City, and he has said that Kansas has had, especially Kansas, even though there's been a couple of tornadoes this year and a few hit and miss ones the last couple of years, it has been fairly poor chasing tornadoes in the plains, especially Kansas the last couple of years. And even Oklahoma, last year, Oklahoma was dead. There was no tornadoes there. And even in 2013, you only take out the May 19th, which was Shawnee and Kearney, May 20th, which was Moore, and May 31st, which was El Reno. The rest of the year was dead in Oklahoma in 2013. There were tornadoes, but there weren't many. You take those 3 days out, 2013 was like 2014 in Oklahoma. Very few tornadoes, only for 3 days. It's similar to what was discussed last week when we had Dave Nussbaum on the show when we were talking about the hurricane season upcoming. It only takes one to make it a horrendously bad season. And in hindsight, 2013 in Oklahoma, 3 days made the season horrible. May 19th, May 20th, and May 31st. So it is April still, but severe weather season started out so slow this year in the entire country, and it's starting to ramp up now. So a lot of people need to start paying attention that yes, severe weather does exist in this country, even though it hasn't happened. There's been a lot of watches this year. We had warnings in New York a couple of days ago. Yesterday, I think it was, or the day before. I don't remember.
Maybe we could bring on Keith Latari to talk more about that.
No, we're not going to have Keith on.
He lives right in the heartland of the Northeast there.
He lives in the heartland of New Jersey. And I don't think he was even under a warning, so he was probably not too thrilled. But, I mean, and we even said, Henry, last year when we were talking amongst ourselves, and we tell the audience this, that even in Iowa last year, did it seem like last year, although there were a lot more tornadoes, it seemed kind of quiet, even though it seemed like we had an outbreak when we were having tornadoes like every day from June.
Yeah, I mean, we did get a lot of tornadoes, no doubt about that. The most we've gotten in many years, probably since 2011, I think it was. But
yeah,
it wasn't really all in one specific event. It was very spread out, and all of the tornadoes that we got were fairly weak. So, I mean, we did get all the tornadoes, but they were all fairly weak, and they were spread out. I mean, there were some days where we got tornadoes going, and there wasn't even a tornado risk anticipated that day. I mean, I remember I nearly flew down the steps trying to get going because I saw there was a tornado warning going on, and I was complete. It was honestly unexpected because, and then I think maybe it was that year, the year before that, where we always got the special weather statements for conditions are favorable for funnel clouds, and then I think that was how the Belmont tornado, because that was a day that we didn't expect tornadoes.
Yeah, that was in 20. That
20,
was
yeah.
That was 2012.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the only real tornado event we had that year.
That was that system produced five or six tornadoes, and that was the year we had 20 for the entire year, and one thunderstorm produced like 25%.
Tornadoes just from that event. Yeah, and that produced a lot of damage in Belmont and adjacent cities down there. Wasn't a good event. This year, fairly quiet. I mean, I'm not sure how many tornadoes we've had this far. I know there were a couple confirmed there in eastern Iowa with the last event that we covered.
Yeah, I would mention this, Henry, that the Weather Service in Des Moines did put the tornado maps back. I did see them. They have the two tornadoes from April 9th on their map for this year, so there's been two in April. I think at this point last year we had at this point like 7 or 8. So I mean, we're behind last year, but last year seemed like a record-breaking year compared to the previous 2 years where we had a record-breaking low.
Yeah, the two tornadoes we had, one was started 8 miles west of Maysville and lasted for about 25 or
22 miles.
Or Scott and Clinton counties. That had a big path length of 22 miles and was an EF1. And then the other one lasted for about, I'd say 20 minutes for Clinton and Whiteside County in Illinois. That started 1 mile southeast of Clinton Airport, 13-mile path length, and was an EF1. So definitely those were, and then the 2014 year, 55 tornadoes, 31 EF0, 21 EF1, and 3 EF2. So again, a very weak tornado years, and the 3 EF2 were fairly weak in nature. I mean, those were low-end EF2, so even then, you could make a case that they were even weaker then.
And then, of course, you have 2013, which take out October 4th. All the tornadoes prior to October 4th were weak. And then October 4th, 2013 happened, and all of a sudden now you have a bunch of EF4s all over the place. So, I mean, it takes like one event. In 2013, if October 4th hadn't existed, 2013 would have been the lowest tornado count in Iowa since, and the records before 1980 are not good, but I went back and looked in 2013 before October 4th. It would have been the lowest count for tornadoes in Iowa since 1963, I think it was. And now, given the fact in the 60s, people weren't seeing tornadoes as often, and there weren't many people looking for tornadoes. So those counts are probably a bit too low, but that just tells you that 2013 was so low up until October 4th, and then the count got boosted up because we had like an outbreak of tornadoes. But it takes one event, October 4th, 2013 being a good example, that took a year that had very few tornadoes. They were very weak, and it turned it into oh my gosh, a bunch of EF4s. I mean, it takes one outbreak. Similar cases back to 2013 in Oklahoma. 3 days, Oklahoma had a horrible tornado year because of 3 days, the 19th, the 20th, and the 31st of May, and that's it. I can't remember any, and I don't think anybody else remembers anything else about any tornadoes in Oklahoma that year at all, except those 3 days. And that's pretty much the case about a lot of people, that they pretty much remember the big days, and then the ones that only have like 1 or 2 tornadoes, nobody remembers. Nobody remembers those. But I'll mention, because we want to do some news items, because some news items went down this past week. It sounds like they're going down or something. that yesterday there was an incident at the National Weather Center in Norman where somebody drove through a gate and their car started on fire. And from what I had heard, it might have been a suicide or something. I never got to get any more updates on that before then because I ended up having to go to bed early last night to get up this morning. So I thought that was kind of odd that that happened yesterday. But so that was a news item that kind of piqued a lot of people's interest on Twitter that of what they were doing. And since Henry and I are going to be at NWA in Oklahoma City, and we might be going to the National Weather Center this fall, so we might have we're going to be doing polygons down there. So we'll probably have cameras at the ready showing off the weather center, and then we'll probably get them confiscated and we'll get sent to the government and we'll go to Leavenworth. I wonder if they would pull that too. They can't say we can't take pictures. Video, I think they won't. It'll be taboo, but pictures, I think they'll be fine. But that was one news item. I saw several other news items. Oh, that one guy. Oh God, Dave Nussbaum mentioned this last week, and I seen it a couple of days ago. This meteorologist in Pittsburgh is retiring. He retired, I think, this week or last. Dave Nussbaum mentioned this last week. He retired after 45 years of being on television, and he was at KDKA in Pittsburgh. And I'm going to have to look it up, so bear with me, because right now I'm letting Henry eat right now. So, but he had been in TV for quite a while. Not in Pittsburgh the whole time, though. I'm trying to find the guy. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, here it is. Dennis Bowman. That's it. 43. He retired after 43 years in TV. He retired last week. He had not been at KDKA the entire time, though. He had been in Pittsburgh for 26 years. He had been at KDKA for 10. But he's been pretty much all over in his 43 years. Yeah, his last day was this past Friday. It was a week ago. So we'll shout him out since he's now going into retirement. So we'll see what happens. I don't have anything else news related that's come up. I mean, I know there's a lot of stuff flying on Twitter, but still a lot of people going crazy about the severe weather. But and Henry and I mentioned this before we went on live about when we were looking at those storms that we were showing earlier, and we were showing them on radars because he was on the composite, so it was showing all the radars, that there are some counties that just are like, why are they in this weather office when they're much closer to a radar that's out of another office? It's so annoying, but there's a lot of this that's got, in fact, my weather office has the same problem, that there's counties where their radar, there's counties that are not in their county warning area. Their radar is only, the beam is only like 2,500 feet above the ground in a county they don't cover. I'm like, I'm sorry. Does that county not trust the weather service office that's only about 45 minutes away, but they trust a weather office an hour and a half away? I'm sorry, I don't understand, but But yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people talking about a rain-wrapped tornado in Kansas. I won't mention who, but it's a certain famous storm chaser. But let's see. I am seeing that my Twitter is going slow. Not a whole heck of a lot else going on. A lot more people talking about rain this weekend. More rain. So lots of hail out there too. So come on, radar or Twitter. Okay. But yeah, there's some other stuff that's going on. I'm trying to see what's, oops, that's not good. Don't want to have that happen. But yeah, there's a lot of some pretty quiet given the fact we're heading into the end of spring. So the sweeps month is coming. I think it's already started or is about to end. I'm not sure. I think it's about to begin. So that usually is when we're gonna. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. We're gonna have to. I'm gonna read this. So, okay, breaking news. Except this isn't really breaking. I just happened to check this. Oh, this is interesting. Oh, this is interesting. I did not know this. Well, this is breaking. This was written today. This was brought up that Jay Trobeck, who's at Kello or Kelloland, it's in Sioux Falls, was in the nation's capital on Wednesday, and he was a witness in a Senate Commerce Committee hearing.
Ooh.
So I think we might have to discuss this now for a little bit. Weathering the storm, how can we better communicate weather to enhance commerce and safety? Well, maybe hiring more NWS people that can do that. That's not what he said. That's what I'm saying. Maybe actually getting people that know what they're doing. And then if they knew what they were doing, you wouldn't have people like a certain person at AccuWeather complaining. But so, but yeah. Oh, and there's going to be a lot of testimony that which I'm going to link. I'm going to put this on my Twitter account after the show is over. The link to this article that has Jay Trobeck's testimony on it, where they talked about the models, about how they do the weather on TV, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and that's something too, Henry, that was discussed on a certain show on Monday night about the models. What would you want to see out of models? And this was discussed in a group amongst a bunch of us, where they want to. There was talk of possibly. I'm doing quotes on off screen. Possibly getting rid of model runs when they go to the new supercomputer. That's not been thought of or discussed, but according to them, they thought they would get rid of the 6Z and 18Z runs.
I have doubts because that would be downgrading the system, and it just seems stupid in general.
But the first thing that they said,
it doesn't make it. If they're trying to move forward with all of this, then they wouldn't be moving backwards by removing 2 runs. Yeah. I mean, think about it.
Now, one thing that was discussed, Henry, and this would be interesting. They want to move a lot of all the TV people that were on said, Well, the HRRR only goes out to 15 hours, correct?
Correct.
They want it to go out to 48 hours.
It's a short-term forecast model. It's not. What are we trying to do? Move the HRRR and make it into the NAM? I mean,
they want to move the NAM 4 kilometer from, is that to, what is that, to 60 hours now?
Yeah.
They want to move it to 84.
Yeah, see,
it's all about short term.
What I don't get is we have server space, but I mean, or not server space, but I mean the processing power. But I mean, we can't make changes like that. And removing 2 model runs, I mean, come on, be a little bit smart here.
Well, the first thing
the 6Z and the 18Z, while they aren't as useful, but they still help in consistency. I mean, I don't want to be looking at, during severe weather events, I don't want to be looking at the 0Z and the 12Z and have to base it off of like 4 runs over the last 2 days. I mean, I'm not, because I am very much, I don't think we should be going all short-term models. That is removing the heart of what the problem is here. Because we need, the more models, the better. It helps us form a better consensus of what's happening. Like some models may have a different approach, and they may be right, because the HRRR isn't always right. The RAP is not always right. Those short-term models are not always right. HRRR does have a good accuracy, but it's not always right. It likes to overdo things usually, at least from my experiences, while the GFS and NAM usually provide a good balance to that. And removing 2 runs of that doesn't make sense to me. I mean, just because we don't need the HRRR to go out longer. I mean,
well, a lot of people wanted that because what normally happens is when the HRRR comes out, the first 2 hours have already passed. So it's already worthless to you. So instead of 15 hours, it's 13 hours of model data you're looking at. That's why I think that's what they were saying, 48 hours, and I'm hearing myself back now.
And they think, if you think we're going to get a lot more upgrades, you are completely wrong, because now with the Air Force cutting their funding to the research and development of the WRF, which is the baseline foundation for nearly all of our models, that's going to hurt. I mean, not having that. We'll still have some NCEP budgeted research done, but the Air Force provided a lot for that. And now they feel like switching to a foreign model and not the one right here in the heartland of America. So we're switching to a United Kingdom model, and you're the United States Air Force, and you don't trust NCEP enough to have good enough models. I mean, it's ridiculous. I'm not saying the UK Met isn't that great either. I mean, the ECMWF, very good accuracy. I mean, that's statistically proven. But I think the United States has a better selection. They're easier, as it's relatively less cost than foreign models. I don't understand it.
Well, here is the one thing that was discussed, and this is the reason why the 6 and 18Z have been thought about getting rid of. It's kind of been talked about, is that there's no new data put in because there is no balloon releases during those model runs. We only release balloons 2 times a day in only a selected area. Their thought was, why does balloons have to be launched twice a day? Why can't they be launched more times a day? And why can't they be launched from more places? That was the first thing they said, is more balloon launches means all model runs are actually good, instead of having just 2 be good and 2 being kind of eh. And that was their big thing. More balloon launches a day, and more balloon launches in other places. And the problem is, you can't.
I mean, if Engross is trying to save money, which I know they're not going to get a lot more money, I don't think we should have standardized balloon launches at 6 and 18Z, but I think the requests for special balloon launches, I don't think it should be standardized, but I think the option should be used more during severe weather events. And I mean, we don't need those balloon launches. I mean, if it's severe weather in the future, I think the opportunities for a special balloon launch could be expanded. I mean, if you're looking for, say, a severe weather event is 48 hours out, you could have balloon launches then, because right now the special request for balloon launch is really, I mean, we remember, I think it was one of the offices down in the South a couple years ago where someone requested that they do a special balloon launch and they didn't want to do it due to funding. So, I mean, I don't think it should become standardized because we need to save. I mean, it's not, we can't be spent. I'm going a little bit, you're seeing a little bit of my political side here, but I don't think we should just keep pouring money into that specific area. I do believe we should have more special soundings, but having that become standardized, that's a lot of money. I mean, the balloon program's already expensive as it is.
Well, we need more balloon launches. I mean, they're talking about, when they're talking about.
Look at the UK. They have the ECMWF. They do it twice a day. Works fine for them. I mean, if I think 2 balloon launches is fine with expanded special launches. I don't think that needs to become standardized, especially here when the weather isn't that exciting. I mean, around severe weather events, I think that should be expanded, but when it's boring weather like in Alaska, excuse me,
well,
when it's boring.
It might be to the case, Henry, is if, do they need to, why does everybody have to do them? Let's say, for example, I'm throwing this out there. They go to standardize 3 tests a day, every 8 hours. Say at 0, Z, 8Z, and 16. Okay. It doesn't have to be for every region. For example, Central region could do the 3, Southern region could do the 3, but Western and Eastern and Alaska and Hawaii would only have 2, because their weather tends to not be as active. I mean, yes, then you have the problem with, well, this one goes at 8 and this one's at 16, and it's so messed up. But I mean, with this, if you have a launch at 0, 8, and 16, the 8Z would be able to go into the 12, although it'd be slightly off. 16 would go into the 18, and then the 12Z would be the only, or the 6Z would be the only one that would not have new data. And that would be kind of like an update, because that's an update where the model starts in the middle of the night anyway. Now, yes, would anybody want to be launching balloons at 8Z, which here would be 3 a.m.? I don't know if anybody would want to be doing that, but now a launch at 11 o'clock, which would be 16Z, which would be 11 o'clock our time now, or 10 a.m. in standard time in Central Time. I think an 11 a.m. launch of a balloon in severe weather, that's typically when they do their special launches, because by 18Z, which would be 1 o'clock our time, the storms could be starting up in like an hour, and by the time you get the data, the storms are already there. So, but I'm not liking 4 a day, but 3 a day, but not everywhere, kind of makes sense. And maybe they only need to do it for part of the year, say March through the end of June, when the weather is more active. Maybe they should only do it during active periods. And even if, especially because you never know when there's going to be severe weather. I mean, some cases you could get severe weather. You could have SPC has an area that's kind of like we're watching, and then 5 days later, that area that they're watching turns into an April 27th event. And then it's like, oh my God, tornadoes all over. So, I mean, you need to have as much data as you possibly can to make the models way better. And then the euro is going to be shitty because nobody's going to want to look at the euro then. But, I mean, we'll see. I mean, they're looking at it. You know how the government is. We'll get something in about 2045 or something. But I'd forgotten that was discussed because they're looking at that. I think there's going to be a lot of discussion on that at NWA in October. So we'll see what comes of that. And speaking of that, today I believe was the last day for abstracts for NWA, the annual meeting in Oklahoma City. I think today was the last day for abstracts. So if you're anybody listening and you were going to send an abstract, sorry, you're out of luck now. So, but
anyway, should we go to shoutouts?
Yeah, we can shout out. But yeah, but before we do that, the schedule for NWA is going to be coming up June, I think it is when they're going to start lining up what's going to be when. So go to the NWA website for any of the latest happenings on there, and maybe you'll find. And if you want to go, all that information's on there as well. Now we can go to shout outs.
All right, my shout out will be a specific Twitter page for a certain Kansas meteorologist. This is Jay Prater, CBM, works in Kansas. That will be my shout out. He is a #1 meteorologist.
Oh, brother.
Anyway, Jeff, I will let you carry on with your shout.
Yeah, I'm thinking of what I'm going to shout out. Oh, I don't know. I'm kind of out. I'll shout it out. That seems kind of sad. But oh, fudge. I'm gonna shout out the ooh, excuse me. Good grief! Now I can't think of what I'm gonna shout out. My brain is just completely shutting down today. So I don't think I'll shout out anybody or anything at the moment because I can't think anything. I'll shout out. Yeah, I'll be spending an hour doing that, and I don't want to do that. So I'm not shouting out anybody. I'll shout out the storms outside because it's not raining now. So, but I will shout out next week's guest, which is Eric Wilhelm. I'll shout him out. He is almost like Panovich when it comes to putting up stuff. He had the thing about the tornado warning in Dallas earlier. I'm thinking you're in Youngstown, Ohio. I'm like, that's not your area, but he's all about weather. He's nerdy, so now we'll probably get a cancellation from him. But yeah, Eric will be on next week, we think, barring severe weather or barring craziness. And on May 8th, John Wetter will be on. We couldn't get Dan on up in the Weather Service in Duluth, who did a very good presentation on the Twin Cities tornado outbreak in 1965 at the Minnesota Severe Storms Conference that was up in Minneapolis. I'll shout that out, thinking of that occurred a couple weeks ago up in Minneapolis. But John will be on, barring if he's not going to be chasing anything, on May 8th to discuss that outbreak, Twin Cities outbreak in 1965. Jeff Baskin is going to be on May 15th, talking about weather in Arkansas. And we have another guest that we are working on right now. I'm not going to mention who it is, but it is another guest we are working, might be on in the latter half of May or maybe early June. We'll see what he decides to do. And we have other guests that have responded but have not responded back to my response to their response. You understand that? The response to the response?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so anyway, that's the show tonight. So thanks everybody for watching this odd episode, as much as odd as it is. So, Henry, do you have anything else?
Not at this time.
Yeah, he's busy eating. So I've already eaten. So anyway, so everybody have a good weekend. Stay dry wherever you are. Stay safe if you're in severe weather areas. Make sure you listen to your weather radio. Make sure you have it turned on for the next couple of days if you're in the South, the Midwest, or anywhere else. And God bless.